All right, we've reached the top of the hour and we will go ahead and get started. Looks like we have a pretty small crowd today, but I guarantee that we will still have a great presentation and there's a lot of information to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and get it moving. Welcome to the monthly climate perspective on drought and hydrologic conditions for Kentucky. And this is for June 2022, covering the month of May. This is a webinar hosted by the State Climate Office for Kentucky, which is a division of the Kentucky Climate Center at Western Kentucky University. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and move it over to our presenter for this month, which is Matt Dixon from the UK Ag Weather Center.
All right, thanks, Megan. Everyone, welcome to Meteorological Summer, June 2022. It seems, I guess this is, I'm presenting every 3 months, which means I get the start to the new meteorological season. It's based on the 3 warmest months of the year, 3 coldest months, and the 3 months in between for spring and fall. And the 3 warmest months of the year start here in June for June, July, and August. So meteorological summer is here. So just some general information to get started. The webinar series is presented by the Kentucky Climate Center at WKU in partnership with NIDIS, the National Integrated Drought Information System, and in coordination with the Midwest Drought Early Warning System. Production delivery of this webinar reflects the contributions of many partners committed to serving the needs of the Commonwealth of Kentucky and its people. We got Megan Shargarowski on here with the Kentucky Mesnet, and we also have Chip Zimmer on here with the Division of Water. So thank you to those two. The next scheduled webinar is July 7th, 2022, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. Webinar is being recorded and is available for viewing afterwards on YouTube. So it's pretty active month for storms across the region. This image in the background is from Pulaski County down there near Somerset on May 18th. That evening, it's kind of interesting look at the surrounding area. If you look at the upper left-hand corner, this is off the camera, off the Mesnet station there. There is a wall cloud extending down from this stratus deck here, or cumulonimbus cloud. So this would be where your tornado is going to form out of if there is going to be a tornado. And then way back in the background here, you see precipitation falling through the air. So quite a bit going on in this photo. So just an outline, same as normal, recent conditions, taking a look at impacts. In addition to the impacts today, I actually had the chance to go present at the Winter Wheat Field Day back on May 10th in Princeton, Kentucky. And I took some pictures while I'm out there. I'll say it again, the resilience of those folks out in Kentucky, Western Kentucky, is truly remarkable to see how much work has been done since that devastating tornado out there. So I'm going to show some before and after pictures. We'll then look at the outlooks, what's looking like below normal temperatures and above normal rainfall for the first half of June. And then we'll have a question and discussion session. Over to the left, another look at some stormy weather up there from the Shelby County Mesnet station on May 14th. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but Shelby County saw some pretty extreme hail during the midsections of May. And then down there in the lower left, congratulations to the Kentucky Mesnet. They just added their 76th weather station. So round of applause to them. Ribbon cutting there in Ballard County on May 10th, 2022. So congrats once again. Happy to have a weather station out there in Ballard County. So looking at the past couple weeks, rainfall has been hit and miss depending on where you live. Those light greenish areas, 2 to 4 inches. You get down in those dark blue areas, you're talking about 1 to 2 inches over the past 14 days. So it's been fairly dry across portions of the bluegrass state the past 14 days. Well, I suppose others have been fairly wet. So a few weeks ago, I remember we had isolated scattered storms across the region. It was more of a summertime air mass. So we had pop-up thunderstorms, and it was one of those instances where your neighbor might have saw 1 to 2 inches while you didn't see anything a few miles away. Going back to 30 days, the wettest conditions have been across eastern Kentucky, 4, 5, 6 inches in place over there in Pike County. But then you go over to central Kentucky and you see those lighter shades of green. You have 2 to 3 inches in place. So central Kentucky saw below normal rainfall this past month of May, while eastern Kentucky and the northern bluegrass running above normal. You actually see some shades of yellow up there in the northern bluegrass. Some locations saw more than 6 inches of rainfall over that 30-day period. Going back 60 days, it's a little bit of a flip-flop. Sorry, I'm getting tongue twisted. Central Kentucky had been dry throughout the month of May. They're actually wet through the month of April. Eastern Kentucky was actually pretty dry through the month of April, and they were wet during the month of May. So opposite end of the spectrum is going from April to May across the area. Going back 90 days, this goes back to March 3rd. So March 3rd through May 31st, accumulated precipitation, according to the Kentucky Mesonet and a precipitation analysis. The darker shades, the highest accumulations down here in Western Kentucky, the Purchase and Pennyroyal region, some folks seeing 16 plus inches. So quite a bit of rainfall out that way, looking longer term. Looking at departure from normal, the deviation from normal, the past 30 days, it's been pretty dry once again across central Kentucky. Those tan shades there, the orange shades, that's 2 to 4 inches below normal rainfall over that 30-day period. So for the month of May, the state of Kentucky averaged about 4.5 inches of rainfall, which is about a half inch below normal. Now, this is something we haven't seen for quite a while, being the fact that we just saw a third straight month of below normal precipitation. So May, April, and March all saw below normal precipitation when we're looking at the average across the state over those 3 months. So the last time we had 3 straight months of below normal precipitation, you got to go back to 2017, 2018 during the months of November through January. So it's been a while. We've been in a exceptionally wet pattern. It's been a while since we've seen 3 straight months of below normal precipitation. So going back 60 days, you see a lot of that below normal rainfall in the 30-day period erased. You see above normal precipitation departures out here in the Purchase region of Western Kentucky. This has a lot to do with planting delays during the month of April and a late start to planting, or at least progress, during the month of May. So this was a big issue since we've really improved, and progress has caught up to where it typically should be at this time of year. Going back 90 days, that above normal signature still showing up down there in the Purchase and Pennyroyal regions. A little bit of below normal rainfall across south central Kentucky and up into the bluegrass. But once again, here in the short term, we're concerned with this below normal rainfall we've been seeing across central Kentucky. Looking at temperatures, May as a whole was pretty warm. Looking both at minimum air temperatures and maximum air temperatures across the state. This map up here in the upper left shows the average temperature departure from normal based on those 1991 to 2020 climate normals. May as a whole ran roughly 3 degrees above normal. Looking at the state average, and that was pretty much evenly distributed. Just, oh man, I'm getting tongue twisted again, distributed across the state of Kentucky. Now, we did have some pretty extreme warm temperatures throughout the month. This map over here on the right was taken from the Midwestern Regional Climate Center, showing the average maximum temperature departure from mean over the period of May 10th to May 16th. So a good portion of Kentucky down here across the western half of the state was running 9, 10, 11 degrees above normal. And even the eastern half of the state, while it was cooler, still pretty significant in some sections, 6 to 9 degrees above normal. Of course, the hot spot was up there near Chicago, just north of Chicago in southeastern Wisconsin, with well above normal temperatures in place. So it just wasn't Kentucky, it was the entire Ohio Valley. So something I saw while writing the crop report last week, we actually saw below normal temperatures with a pretty active pattern in place, plenty of cloud cover, rain and storms. So below normal temperatures. And that was actually our first week that the state average temperature ran below normal in 6 straight weeks. So prior to that, we had gone 6 straight weeks with the state temperature average running above normal. So it's been a pretty extended period of warm weather here in the state of Kentucky. Seemed to me temperatures really peaked on May 12th. Most of the state got into the low 80s to low 90s. Normal highs for this time of year on May 12th run in the mid 70s. The Fulton County Mesonet Station and Paducah Airport both hit 92 that day, which is the earliest 90 plus degree temperature since 2012. So I'm not saying that's a precursor to the drought of 2012, but we've just been running pretty warm here in 2022 thus far. Speaking of that warm week, the second week of May, and the heat across the entire Ohio Valley and into the upper Midwestern region. This is a look at the daily high temperatures broken or tied, and both high maximum and minimum temperatures located there in the black. We had some here in Louisville, Paducah area, Western Kentucky. So a very warm May last month. If I remember right, looking at rankings, I believe it's going to rank somewhere probably in the top 25 warmest Mays on record, and that's data going back to 1895. Looking at the U.S. Drought Monitor, something we don't want to see, but it does happen during the spring months, the summer months, whenever we have some short-term periods of dry conditions, and that's exactly what we're having now. We do have some abnormally dry conditions introduced by the U.S. Drought Monitor in the past couple of weeks. This is a look at the May 31st, 2022 update and released today, June 2nd. Most of those abnormally dry conditions out there in central Kentucky, extending up there near Louisville also. Believe back at the end of April, we were concerned with Eastern Kentucky, and those deficits have been diminished. And now our concern is more so across Central Kentucky, where we've seen shallow soil moisture starting to be depleted and stream flows running below normal for this time of year. So not worried yet. I think the rain the past couple of days has somewhat underachieved. We are dry Friday and Saturday, but looking into next week, it does look to turn wet again. So hoping that rain does verify, especially after the fact that we're pretty well caught up on planning at this point in the year. Looking at the U.S. Drought Monitor class change over the past month, unfortunately, Kentucky is one of the few states across the eastern half of the United States that's showing a degradation in the U.S. Drought Monitor, meaning we're getting worse in some spots of the state. So the yellow right there is where the U.S. Drought Monitor has abnormally dry conditions. Eastern Kentucky, once again, has improved over the past 4 weeks, came out of abnormally dry conditions. Good to see. I'm actually presenting this out in Oklahoma where I'm visiting my new nephew. We've had what felt like monsoon conditions the past day, but Oklahoma as a whole out here is pretty green, and conditions are improving up here through the Western Corn Belt for the most part. We want to see green colors on this map. And out here in the Western Corn Belt, that's exactly what they're seeing. So if only we can get rid of these yellow colors here in central Kentucky over the next week or two. So looking at modeled soil moisture and groundwater, I'm sorry I left groundwater up there. We're looking all right. I wanted to include a look at the Kentucky Crop Progress and Condition Report up here in the upper right-hand corner. Kentucky topsoil moisture currently 10%, under 10% is running in the short to very short category. That's actually improved since the previous week. Compared to where we were back in 2021 at this time of year, we're looking better and looking right on par to where we should be with that 5-year average. Now, I include this map up here in the upper left, looking at the calculated soil moisture anomaly change over the past month from May 31st to April 30th. And you see some tannish brownish colors there. So that means we're heading in the wrong direction. Soil moisture is going in the wrong direction. Eastern Kentucky is looking better. Once again, not to say we can't improve on conditions next week. Looking down here, this is a look at soil moisture and the sensors associated with the stations in Grayson County and Warren County, Kentucky, the Kentucky Measurement stations. And gray and blue here, that's your 2-inch and 4-inch soil moisture sensors. And throughout much of the month of May, sure, we did see an uptick somewhere, maybe the 24th or 25th in both images, but you see a lot of downward trends on these charts. So that's going to correspond with those abnormally dry conditions each of those locations have been seen. So something we're watching. Chip and his folks over at the Division of Water, they're in charge of updating or sending in the recommendation of what the U.S. drought monitor should look like in the state of Kentucky. So he's continuously monitoring these conditions across the state. So thank you to Chip. Stream flow, 7-day average, once again, below normal stream flows across central Kentucky, running near normal to even much above normal down here in southeastern Kentucky. I believe that's Harlan County down there. So going back 28 days, you see those below normal stream flow averages expand across central Kentucky. But for the most part, the rest of the state running normal, maybe even above normal. Moving on to severe weather. It was a pretty active month across the state of Kentucky, but that comes with the month of May. That's one of our more active months for severe weather across the entirety of the year. These purple shades on here symbolize hail reports, while these trees, thunderstorm wind damage. So it was primarily damaging winds and hail events through the course of May here in Kentucky. Do have one tornado up here in northeastern Kentucky. Over here's a picture from May 14th. I apologize. Maybe Megan can chime in the chat box of who represents or what station represents. I'll say Carl here, C-A-R-L, but a nice cumulonimbus cloud going up in the background there. So once again, going back to the hail, we had hail, and in some instances, it was big. So John Gordon, he's the meteorologist in charge over at the National Weather Service in Louisville, and he showed some pictures of some of the hail seen across Frankfurt over here on the left. And I believe this was Shelbyville over on the right. I might be wrong, but I did get a kick out of it. This was the first time I've seen hail compared to German dumplings. So you always hear baseball size hail, softball size hail, but German dumplings was a new one to me. And then Beth Wilson, an agent, county ag agent down there in Pulaski County. She showed some of the hail damage to one of her apple trees down there in that area. So hail did have an impact. I also read in the crop report there were some impacts to strawberries, just depending on whether you saw the hail or not. So looking at severe weather through the course of the year. So this is a look at the accumulation of severe thunderstorm and tornado warning counts across the state of Kentucky from January 1st through June 1st. And we compare that to the past 22 years, going back to the year 2000. 2022 is about middle of the pack right there. We compare that to where we were back in 2021. Until we got to December last year, it was a pretty quiet 2021, but it's been more active here in 2022. Once again, about middle of the pack up here, but still running well below anything like we saw in 2011, a very active month for the state of Kentucky and across most of the United States. Moving on to Kentucky ag statistics. Looking at impacts, we're looking all right now. Now we move back to the start of May, maybe not so much. There was quite a bit of worry. I shouldn't say worry, but planting was just behind after a very cool and wet month of April. So as we sit now, 89% of corn is planted. We compare that to the 5-year average of 88%. So we're actually running a little bit ahead of schedule. Soybeans planted sitting there at 63%, 10% ahead of the 5-year average. Emergence is going well. Corn emergence a little bit behind, but not too much. And soybean emergence a little bit ahead of normal. Looking at crop conditions, this is seem to be the same, even going into 2021 and 2020. All the statistics pretty much lining up in this good category, and then a little bit on either side, whether it's fair or excellent. Very little in the very poor or poor categories. So we'll take it. Looking at corn progress, I told you it was a slow go to start the month, start the growing season here in the state of Kentucky. Here is the percent of corn planted on May 8th. So corn progress, the crop planted based on May 8th, we had 39% in the ground at that time, which was 16% behind the 5-year average. This was similar across the entire Ohio Valley. You see, Illinois was much worse off than us. They only had 15% in the ground, over 40% behind that 5-year average. But, you know, sometimes it only takes 1 week to turn things around. And we got those dry weeks the middle of May. I remember we had 5, 6, maybe even 7 days of dry conditions. That was whenever it warmed up too. And we made a ton of progress in 1 week. In a 1 week period, we went from 39% in the ground on May 8th to 65% in the ground on May 15th. So just a shade under 30%, 26% jump in 1 week. We'll take that all day long. And once again, we are caught up at this point. Now, last month, I talked a little bit about fertilizer prices. They went up big time. And there's some folks that aren't even laying fertilizer on their hay fields this year. And we are seeing the impacts of that based on early cuttings across the state of Kentucky. This is from a friend of mine, Dr. Josh Jackson. He's a professor in the Department of Biosystems and Ag Engineering at UK. And he has his own cattle and hay operation over in Mercer County. And he shared with me some of his data between 2021, 2022. So first looking over at 2021, he had one field without fertilizer. He did not apply any fertilizer. That was 20 acres worth. He got 16 bales off that, which was worth 0.8 bales per acre. He had another field and he put half the recommended fertilizer rates on that field, which was 15 acres worth. He got 43 bales out of that, quite a bit, which comes out to 2.9 bales per acre. Now we moved to 2022. He only put a quarter of the recommended fertilization rates down because of current prices, right? And this is where he's coming out at right now. 20 acres, this first field, just for comparison's sake. He only got 10 bales, which is good for a half bale per acre. And this field, he laid with a half of the recommended fertilization rates in 2021. He put a quarter down in 2022, 15 acres worth. He got 11 bales, good for 0.7 bales per acre. So we look at these bales per acre, they're down across the board from 2021, and something we're seeing across the state with these high fertilizer prices in place. So something else I'll say about hay, we've seen maybe a couple windows for hay cutting here during the past month of May. Windows have been hard to come by. We really want a 4-day window. You cut on day 1 and you build up on day 4 for this time of year and get it stored before the next rain. So hoping this improves as we go into the month of June. Even though Central Kentucky is seeing below normal rainfall, you like to see, 1-2 inch rain events followed by a decent drying window. Going into UK winter wheat field day up in Princeton, or over in Princeton, I should say. This was May 10th, 2022. Megan, I apologize. I don't know if you guys see this, these controls up here at the top. I can't seem to get them to hide. If you can't, great. If so, I'm sorry, but it was a great day to be out in Princeton, Kentucky. Very nice conditions, mostly sunny skies. This was the first time, if I remember Colette telling me out in Princeton, this was the first time in a few years that they've been able to have winter wheat field day with COVID in place across the world. So it was nice to see faces again, get everyone back together. I think there was roughly 75 people there. Had some good talks from specialists across the College of Agriculture. And then at the end, Chad Lee and Chris Teutsch gave us an update on operations out at Princeton after the December 10th tornado outbreak. So these are some notes that Chad sent me about the UK research farm out there. I put some pictures on here. It's pretty impressive. Once again, talking about the resilience of those folks out there. Carrie Knott is the director of UK Rec, and she has done an absolutely tremendous job cleaning up this area, putting it back together, her and her folks. It looks totally different. This picture over here on the lower left was when me and Dr. Chad Lee went out on Saturday, December 11th, looking at what was the new research facility that was built in 2018, completely rubble. And this is a look from the field day back on May 10th, 2022. So everything's pretty well cleaned up, hauled away. It looked like a monumental task, but Carrie Knott and her folks have taken it and taken care of it. So just some notes from Chad Lee. There was no loss of human life with this event there at the Princeton Research Facility. although there were some folks sheltered in the buildings, they all came out all right. We did have some injuries, just no fatalities. So there is now 2 temporary equipment sheds in place. I'll show one of those in the next slide. One is a shop and one is a climate controlled storage facility. There is 2 other small offices for Carrie and her staff closer to where the old UK rec facility stood. And some other good news, they do have an air conditioned and heating restroom out there. So you always want that. You don't want to be using porta potties all the time. Temporary offices and labs are in the works right now. We look at the equipment out there, most was damaged, but most of it has been repaired or replaced at this point. Insurance has been great to work with. Let's see, station has water for cattle and field work. Electricity is another story. They do have electricity going to Carrie Knott's office up there next to the old building, but they're trying to get electricity to the rest of the farm. I think that was an issue with the Kentucky Mesnet, but I think, and Megan can correct me, I believe they got solar power hooked up to the Kentucky Mesnet station there. So they are moving ahead with several barns and other structures across the region. Is one of those like for like processes with the insurance industry. Been once again very, very good to work with. Architects are working on plans for the main new building moving forward. There are some talks about adjusting the layout to make it more efficient, improve traffic flow, so on and so forth. So they're working with insurance right now. But there is still a lot of work to be done. So no doubt about it. I also want to add Chris Teutsch. He's one of the forage specialists at UK. He took a lead on cleaning up the acres and acres of ground out there that was covered with debris from the surrounding neighborhoods. You had building materials all over the place, and it was a 2-3 month process of a core group of people out there in Princeton and volunteer groups coming in. They were armed with 5-gallon buckets, and you had to walk the fields. A lot of bending over, picking up piece after piece of debris, but you had to get it cleaned up. Can be harmful to livestock, but you also don't want it getting packed in with those round bales, especially in those hay fields. So once again, a tremendous amount of work to be done, but they have made a lot of progress out there. To be honest, back on December 11th, my jaw dropped looking at the damage. My jaw dropped at May 10th, 2022, looking at the resilience of that community. So just some more images up here in the upper left. This was on the other side of our building. A lot of the damage was pushed that way into a few houses that are no longer there. You see the tree line up there, and this is what it looks like on May 10th. So a lot of the trees had to be cut down, and everything is predominantly cleaned up. Down here in the lower left, one of our shops was destroyed. Semi made it through, and this is one of those replacement shops, covered facilities, equipment sheds that was brought in, at least on a temporary basis. So moving ahead to the forecast, I'll move through this fairly quickly. I know we're already 35 minutes into the hour. Dry. We do have some lingering shower storms today, but dry on Friday and Saturday. And then it looks like we're going to get in a fairly active period with multiple rounds of showers and storms heading into next week. So light blue shade there. 1.25 inches of accumulated precipitation over the next 7 days. You get in those purple shades out there in Western Kentucky, 1.5 to 2+ inches. And I wanted to point out down here, you see some pretty bright colors. Orange is 5 inches plus. That brownish color there is 7 inches plus. There's a reason for that. Hurricane season is off. It actually started on June 1st and, right on schedule. There is a disturbance that is being monitored down there, southwest of Florida and west of Cuba and whatnot. So that looks like it's going to track up into the southern half of Florida. And this would officially be, I think, the first tropical depression of the season, which would be Alex. Might have been the second. But anyways, excuse me. Looking out the 6 to 10 days, June 7th through 11th, higher confidence and below normal temperatures across the northern Midwest. Looks like we're going to get a taste of that down in Kentucky. 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, above normal precipitation in place. Fairly decent confidence that's going to happen. So above normal rainfall for the period of June 7th through June 11th. We move out to the 8 to 14 day outlook of June 9th through 15th. Those below normal temperatures extend into Kentucky, and above normal precipitation remaining in place. Maybe not as high in the way of confidence. This is 2 weeks out, but lo and behold, the first half of June is looking like it's going to run cooler than normal, with above normal rainfall. So not to say we can't have some dry periods and warmer periods here and there, but overall cooler and wetter than normal. Looking at the outlook for June as a whole, it's showing that below normal temperature hotspot up there in the upper Midwest. Just as an FYI, this was the case in April, the spring months too. They were awfully cool up into the Dakotas. If we were behind on planning, they were well behind up that way. But really equal chances for below normal, above normal, or near normal temperatures and precipitation during the month of June. Just not a whole lot of confidence either way in the June outlook here in Kentucky. Moving on to the 3-month period and beyond, I wanted to take a look at La Nina, the ENSO El Nino Southern Oscillation forecast going forward through the rest of the year. We are currently in La Nina. We've been in a La Nina for the past 2 years. And in some ways, unbelievably, it looks like we're trending toward a third straight year of La Nina. I read an article earlier. This would be only the third time that has happened in recorded history when looking at this El Nino Southern Oscillation, which I want to say goes back 75 years or so. So we never, or I shouldn't say we hardly ever see 3 years straight of La Nina conditions, but that's what we're looking at this year. Just an FYI, La Ninas tend to increase hurricane activity in the Atlantic Basin. Something we look at on the agricultural side if we need rain during the fall months, maybe late summer months, coming up from the Gulf of Mexico. So it'll be a third straight year of increased Atlantic hurricane activity, at least as the forecast sits right now. So if we go into a La Nina during next winter, that would mean a wetter winter in place once again. Looking at the seasonal outlook for June, July, and August, above normal temperatures are favored across the entire United States, including Kentucky, and then equal chances in regards to precipitation, maybe a little bit higher along the coastal areas there. I didn't read into their determination of these outlooks, how they made them, but I can only assume some of that has to do with the Atlantic uptick and in La Nina. So looking at the monthly stream flow outlook, running near normal for the month of June 2022. Looking at the drought outlook going through May or through August 31st, 2022. They do show some drought development likely across Iowa, but we're looking all right here at Kentucky. It's not to say that we can't move into a drought at some point, but just based on some of these outlooks, we're looking all right in the state of Kentucky. And then looking at wildfire potential, we're fine here in the state of Kentucky. Once again, the issues are going to be across the western half of the United States. We're fine here in the state of Kentucky, but as we saw last year, and I think back in 2020 also, we can feel the impacts of these wildfires out in western Kentucky with some of that smoke filtering into the region with the upper level jet stream. So people with health issues, this can be a problem. So in summary, talked a lot today. Below normal rainfall, above normal temperatures for the month of May. We do have some abnormally dry conditions showing up across central Kentucky. Looking spatially across the state, about 23% is now deemed abnormally dry. Planting progress was a slow go to start May, but we have since caught up, or we're even ahead of schedule in the case of soybeans here in early June. Looking ahead, outlooks hint at above normal rainfall and below normal temperatures for the first half of June. Could really go either way for the rest of June. And then I want to say, I mentioned earlier, maybe only a couple good dry windows for hay producers out there. Row crops saw some good dry windows for catching up on planting. But if you're in this hay business, take advantage of those dry windows when you can, because our climate is showing we're getting wetter during the spring and summer months. So take advantage of those dry windows. We're losing the number of baling days if we compare to where we are at now back a decade. So take advantage. And then heading into summer 2022, risk of drought is minimal. So Megan, that's what I have. We'll open up for a question answer session real quick if anybody wants to chat. Thank you.
Thanks for an awesome presentation, Matt. Like you said, we will go ahead and have some time for question and answer period. And if anyone out there has any questions, either on the Zoom or on YouTube, feel free to either type into the chat box or unmute yourself. We'll give just a minute or so for anybody to respond. I'll go ahead and state some of the things that Matt wanted my feedback on. I did put them in the chat box, but Carl is one of the stations that is in Nicholas County. That's outside of, or within the area of Carlisle in Nicholas County. As well as I wanted to mention that with all of the talk of the Princeton rec center and everything, the Mesonet station there is currently just the bottom section of the tower, and that is on solar power for the meantime. Hopefully we can get that back on AC at some point, but it's working, and so that's good enough for right now. It gives us data back in that area. But I did want to say that this morning we had an engineer go out and inspect the concrete base, and he has officially given the approval for us to go ahead and reinstall the full 10 meter tower. So that's a really big deal too. Given that there isn't a whole lot that is on the tower up higher that takes much power, we feel like we can pretty reliably put that back out with it fully on solar power at this time. So I think that will probably happen sometime this summer. I can't guarantee when, but I think should be within this next month or so. Hopefully, maybe even by the next webinar, that is July 7th at 1 p.m. Eastern, or 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. I can give some good news there. Hopefully, we will actually have another station for Russell County at that time too. But with that, any questions? Well, I think I am slotted for the next webinar that is July 7th. So you'll get to hear from me again. And then Chip will be the August webinar. So thank you everybody for listening in. And again, if you have any impacts to report, keep in mind that we do have the Kentucky Drought and Hydrologic Impact Reporter that you can submit information to using the Survey 123 app available on iOS or Android. And outside of that, if you ever have any questions or concerns, or if there's something that you would like added to the webinar, or if you just have questions in the middle of the month, feel free to email any of us that are listed here, and we would be happy to get back with you. With that, I think we can round out the webinar. Thank you so much, Matt, for your wonderful presentation today. I know it was a lot to cover and you did a great job. And so thank you everyone for being here. And I look forward to seeing